Y'all know it's Sunday, and I love to talk about God. So let me first be clear. I speak from a spiritual lens. Man created religion, God created spirit. So I'm spiritual. And here's the thing, I didn't arrive here in this path, on this path, in spite of religion. I found it through religion. It was the doorway that introduced me to faith. It gave me language, it gave me rhythm. It gave me the word faith. I knew I had something, but I didn't have a word for it yet, and that's what religion gave me. But eventually, the deeper I went, the more I realized God was inviting me beyond what I had been taught into something more intimate, more direct, more alive. This isn't about rules, this is about relationship. This is for those who feel the divine not just in church, but in nature, in silence, in truth, and in their own body. Because what if the deepest betrayal isn't sin, but forgetting that you've always had a direct line to God? Now, I understand that this is a sensitive topic, but I ask that you just hold on with me for a while. In this episode, we're unraveling the illusion, the one that told us we need permission, a middleman, and rituals to access what was already ours. We're exploring how religion became a system of dependency, why so many people fear true intimacy with God, and what it really means to walk in the image of the Creator. This episode is sacred, it's bold, and it's filled with truth for those who remember and for those who are just now ready. And all I ask is that you bring a curious mind, a heart open to wisdom, a spirit hungry for reflection, because the sacred texts don't say follow the crowd. They say know thyself and remind us that the kingdom is within. If you follow those directions, they won't just guide you, they'll set you free. So take a breath, settle in. This isn't a sermon, it's a soul conversation. I am T, your sacred guide. Let's begin. Welcome back, family. This is Between Lovers, the Heart and Soul Chronicles. And today's episode is a sacred scroll in audio form. It's called God Without Middleman, the return of the direct line. And if you've ever felt like the God you were taught to believe in wasn't quite the God your soul knows, this one is for you. The shrinking of God. There was a time when the voice of God was the first sound. Before rules, before buildings, before sermons and systems. It was direct, unfiltered, holy. But over time, people grew afraid of what it meant to be that close. To not need a gatekeeper. To not need permission. So they shrunk God into pulpits. They gave the microphone to the loudest ones and told the rest of us, you need an interpreter, you need a mediator, you need a covering. And from that moment, the signal didn't die, but it got scrambled. They worshipped the frame. They took the messenger and forgot the message. They built statues to the prophets, but forgot the wind that carried their voice. They feared hearing God for themselves, so they called it dangerous when you did. They called it pride when you prayed without a script. They called it blasphemy when you said, I hear God clearly. I know I was sent to do something, and I know what it was. But the truth is, you didn't come to compete with the prophets. You came to continue the message. You don't idolize the messenger. You live the lesson. The inheritance they forgot. Every sacred text says, you are made in God's image. You are not distant. You are not unworthy. You are not disconnected. But if they taught you that you needed a translator, a priest, a pastor, a bishop, a title, then it becomes very easy to control you. You forget that the veil was torn, that the breath of God never left, that you don't need to buy your way into favor. You were born with access. You were never meant to outsource your salvation. You were never meant to be afraid of your own temple. The line was never broken. It was only buried. God is everyone's God. Let me say this clearly. My God is everyone's God. Not in ownership, but in origin. Creator God, The one before let there be light. The intelligence, the frequency, the force, the love. You know energy cannot be created nor destroyed. That could only be God. But the love from which all life springs. That God doesn't need branding, doesn't need a membership card, doesn't need your performance, just your presence. That God is just, creative, balanced, limitless, and wholly beyond religion. And if you were made in that God's image, what does that make you? You are the temple. This is the part they struggle with. They think you're rebellious, but you're actually reverent. They think you're rejecting God, but you're rejecting distortion. They think you're doing too much, but you're just doing what was always yours to do. Walking directly, hearing clearly, living boldly, loving honestly. When I say my steps are ordered, I mean it. I don't guess. I don't play pretend faith. I listen and I walk. And guess what? It hasn't failed me yet. The way forward. So what now? You remember. You rebuild. You unlearn the noise and restore the signal. You talk to God like God talks to you, with honesty, with clarity, with no shame. You're already seated at the table. The altar is your breath. The priest is your stillness. The scripture is your soul, baby. The scripture is your soul. You can feel it. And if you listen, you'll hear that line clearer than ever. If you've made it this far, thank you. Thank you for sitting with truth. Thank you for opening your heart to a God who's never been far. Not behind a pulpit, not trapped in a book, not reserved for the holy few, but present within you, always has been. And just so we're clear, this isn't my truth. It's your remembrance. It's the knowing that stirred in your bones as I spoke. It's the voice in your gut that whispered, yes, this. It's the resonance that rose in you as my voice simply gave language to what your spirit already knew. That's not persuasion, that's presence. That's not performance, that's alignment. We weren't made to worship from fear. We were made to walk in remembrance, to talk to God like breath, to feel the divine in our daily lives, in stillness, and in the chaos, and even in the questioning. So whether you're deconstructing, rebuilding, or just beginning to seek, you're welcome here. Not for who you pretend to be, but who you are. The real you, the one God already knows. If this episode stirred something in you, share it with someone else who's ready to remember. Subscribe, leave a review, and stay close. You don't have to believe me, just follow what you feel. This is just the beginning of a deeper conversation. I'm T, your sacred guide. This is Between Lovers, the Heart and Soul Chronicles, where truth returns in every breath, where no voice is holier than your own when it's aligned. Walk gently, walk boldly, walk soulfully. The line is open. You're already home.